What is going on, everyone? I hope you're having a wonderful day. Guys, today's video we're going to be talking about the Shimano Arma joint. I got to fish it a little bit with the Arma joint master, John Chin himself. We went out to Lake Texoma, showed me a few things on how to fish the Arma joint, got my learning curve up to, from here all the way up here. It's insane the amount of fish that he was able to catch on the Arma joint itself. The Arma joint is a very interesting and unique swim bait that I highly recommend you to try. It is definitely one of those more swim baity glide baits. It can work as a twitch bait, it can work as a pure swim bait, kind of like a bull shad action where it's just swimming. It's not much of a glider, and that was the first thing I realized when I was trying to work this, like I would work a traditional glide bait. It is not a glide bait. Don't label it a glide bait. It is more of a traditional swim bait, right? So this guy right here is the Shimano Arma Joint 190 SS, which stands for slow sink. Now, they also originally came out with a slow float version, and I have some little tips and tricks that I found and John's told me about working the Shimano Arma Joint. Guys, but before we hop into that, head over to the Instagram and Facebook, check out our social media pages, and definitely subscribe here on YouTube if you enjoy the content. But we got some really big sales going on, so don't miss them. Each day up until Christmas, we've got a big sale going up, so make sure you hop on that. Guys, we got some cool stuff, rods, reels, tackle that you're not finding anywhere else, especially some of the JDM tackle, as well as the swim baits at the prices we're getting them for. So definitely check it out on lakeprotackle.com. Keep up with the social media. I'm staying updated on there all the time. Now, back to the Shimano Arma Joint. This guy right here has been a staple, like I said, in John's tackle box. And a lot of other people that come in the store here, a bunch of the swim bait guys, have learned that this bait right here has some true hidden power behind it. Now, first off, right off the bat, it is a 190 millimeter bait. I'm not exactly sure on the weight of it, but it's not super heavy. You can throw it on a medium heavy rod if you want. You can throw it on a heavy rod. And we're gonna get more into John's favorite rod and the rod that I've been throwing it on, and kind of how you can marry the two together. But right off the bat, the first main feature of this bait that I do want to highlight is going to be the flash boost technology going inside the chamber there, the front chamber. You can see it kind of shaking a little bit. Even as I'm talking, holding it still, it's still moving. So overall, this bait here, when it goes through the water, it's still flashing. It's putting off a bunch of, reflective pulses, I guess. So when predator fish see it, like smallmouth or largemouth or spotted bass, when they see it, they can key in on it very, very easily. Now, the second part of this bait here, it is multi-segmented, although the main segment does most of the action. The secondary segment doesn't actually do too much. It doesn't really move that much at all. It's just added kick to help the bait move around through the water column. Now, it doesn't come stock like this. These are actually different hooks that I've put on here myself, and also added a little feather on the back, and we'll get into my reasoning behind that. Now, the biggest part on this is the joint most of the time, the flash boost, Arma boost. This bait can fold in half very, very easily, and it's very easy for something like a 3-pounder or 4-pounder to get all the way in its mouth because it can fold down so small. Now, this bait here is around, I would say, 7.5. I can tell you exactly. Well, it's 190 millimeter, right? So it's a decent sized bait, but as you're working it, it can definitely look a lot smaller than it actually is. So, stock on the bait, guys. Everything stock on here is super strong, super sturdy. You don't need a super heavy rod to throw it. The rod that I personally have been throwing it on is just a favorite rods. Big Sexy, guys. We don't carry these, but this is the rod that I have in my boat. And being honest with y'all, this is just what I have to throw it on, right? So this here is a 7'4", medium heavy. It's a very parabolic rod. It bends all the way deep down into the blank as a true medium heavy, moderate fast rod. This is the one I've been throwing it on. Bennett, if you watched our Texoma video, Bennett was throwing that rod. Now let me go get John's rod that he really likes, and I'll get back to you here. All right, so here it is. The rod that John loves the most, and actually just recently bought another one of, is the Miller rods right here. They're out of Australia. They're Carl Jochimson's rods, if you're familiar with him on the Elite series. This is his series of rods that he created. So this one here is called the Swim Freak, It's a 7'9", I believe, or 7'8", and it's going to be ideal for hair jigs, swim jigs, great for crankbaits, any treble hook bait, a spoon, and it's rated, it's not really even rated for anything. It says lures between 1/2 ounce and 2 ounces, which fits the Arma joint very well. It's very similar in terms of its moderate fast action and medium heavy-ish power. You know, it's got some good backbone leading down all the way into it, but it is a 7'8" rod, so it does have a nice easy flex all the way down to the tip. So these two rods are very similar. Mine's a little bit shorter just because I don't have any other rod like this one here. But, you know, fishing John's rod, fishing his combo, the Swim Freak is definitely the one I highly recommend to get. We also have the Leviathan, I think it's the Leviathan Omega Finesse, I believe. But the finesse rods from Leviathan are also very similar. I think it's a 7'9" as opposed to a 7'8", but very similar in power and its taper and action. So back to the Arma joint itself, guys. I have been throwing this here on 17-pound Seagar Invisex. It's a much harder fluorocarbon compared to like a Brazex or Tatsu. So it has a little bit more memory. I changed it out a little bit more. But in terms of getting a good hookup with this more limber rod, the Invisex is the line that I choose to go with a little bit more often the time on my big swim baits, because I like to let the rod do most of the work. Now, the hooks that I changed this to are going to be the Ryugi Pierce trebles. They're a medium heavy gauge according to Ryugi. They're very, very finessey. You don't want to set the hook super hard with the bait in general, just because you can rip the hooks out of the fish's mouth. But the Ryugi Pierce trebles have been super, super good for me. In terms of just sharpness, they are extremely sharp. You don't really even have to set the hook, just kind of reel into them and kind of bow up on them. Now what's also cool about this, like I said, is I added the feathered treble hook, and working the bait without a feathered treble hook, it takes just a little bit for that bait to get going. And we'll talk about some modifications you can do to the bait. Now this is the slow sink version, guys. The slow float version is very, very similar. Typically John was adding some lead strips to make it just super, super slow float. Out of the package it does rise a lot faster on the slow float, but the slow sink to me, yes, I can't get it back if I break it off right, but to me, the slow sink version is definitely the one I want to go with a lot of the time, depending on the time of the year, right? You know, wintertime, a slow float might be the best option if you can get this bait down, nose down, and swim down a little bit to around that 4-foot range, where John's been targeting recently. But for me, a slow sink is just where I'm comfortable with. I like the slow sink application, especially with live scope fishing. You can sink it down near and around fish a lot easier. Now back on the hooks here, this bait here is very, very special in the fact that it has some hook hangers where the hooks actually are held in place to where they don't tangle up easy at all. You know, you can see the bait here can swing around, fold down for easy casting, but the hooks aren't getting hung up. And that is due to the hook hangers you can see right here. The hooks actually just kind of pop out, swivel around a lot easier when that fish tries to get leverage on you. To put them back in, it's very simple. Just line the hook up, push it in, and it's gonna pop into place and not actually fly out on you. And so the hook hangers are very, very good on the bait here. Now, another thing, this bait does not come with a split ring or a snap or anything. I just used a 80-pound or 60-pound split ring. You can use whatever you want. A snap would work fine. John likes tying loop knots on these to make it swim a lot easier, and it opens up the action a whole lot more, especially for your more aggressive fish. You can work this bait very, very fast around areas. You can swim it super fast, and that bait's just gonna swim like this very, very erratically. Now, what's great about the slow float version as opposed to the slow sink, right? The slow float will sit there, suspend a lot easier, just kind of slowly rise up and get you back above the strike zone, work it real fast and get it into the strike zone, and it's a great way to target fish that way. Now, one thing I did notice, because I have both, I have a slow sink and a slow float. This one here is my favorite. Like I said, the slow sink to me is super, super awesome, but the slow float, I didn't mess with it as much out of the package, and John highly recommended me to do this, is work the joint in. Now the joint has a little tiny magnet actually inside right in the middle here on the main body portion. You can see it if you're just looking at it, but the magnet actually catches on the two hinges on the bait here, and it helps keep it in line and not as just flexy, you know, go around everywhere. Because the bait, you know, you can dead walk it. You can make the head do left, right, with that tail not moving, with really precise inputs of the reel handle. You don't need a lot of rod on the bait here. So really just inputs on the reel handle. You can make this bait dead walk like this. If you add a little bit of rod in there and make it move a lot more, you can get a full, almost traditional glide out of it. But this one little tip here, which John told me, was that you can take some sandpaper, right? So the ridges inside the bait here, and I'll do some close-ups for y'all. Maybe you can see it here. The ridges are actually beveled up to where those hinges want to stay in the middle. What you can do, guys, is actually take some sandpaper, or just kind of work the bait like this in your hand and work the joints and work that plastic down. I just took some sandpaper, made it easy on myself, and actually took down those bevels. And now this bait works so much more freely. The magnets, it feels like they're not as tight when you're moving it, and overall just opens up the action a ton. Now, you don't have to have a oversized reel for this. I've been using the Shimano Bantam. It's like 150 size reel. It does have a good power handle on it, good knobs on it. So if you are throwing it on conventional gear, make sure it can handle it right. So something like, I don't know, maybe like a Revo X might not be the ticket for you. The Corrado K200s are awesome. Corrado MGL is kind of in the middle place for me, but the Bantam is built super solid. I absolutely love throwing it on this. John likes the Tatulas, the Tatula 300 with braid. He can launch that thing super far, especially on a 7'8" rod. And those are just really kind of some things that I noticed with the Arma joint, guys. Really just take the time, take your bait out there. If you've got some clear enough water to really see it, just take your rod tip down, slowly reel it around, and you're gonna see that this bait here has some massive drawing power. The hook up to land ratio is amazing just because those hook hangers. And if you're like me and you like to put some smaller hooks on your baits, definitely check out the Ryugi Pierce treble hooks. They've got the Teflon coat. They call it a TC coat. It's a medium heavy wire, not super heavy. You know, I'm typically going with really thick, more thicker gauge hooks, especially on my big glides. And I will leak a little information here for y'all guys. We do have some very special baits coming in the shop here as a collaboration between us, John Shin, and another bait maker. So definitely stay tuned for that information, guys. When it's ready to be released, everything should be set in stone around New Year's, and it should be super awesome. So definitely check that out. But guys, head over to lakeprotackle.com, pick up a Arma joint slow sink or slow float. Check it out. If you have any questions, drop them down below. I'll be in the comments. John will be in the comments to help you answer these questions, and definitely have some success on the bait right here in the wintertime. Not just the wintertime, springtime, summertime, whenever those fish are getting up and busy chewing on bait. That is the ticket right there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time at Lake Pro Tackle. See ya.